ערב טוב לכולן, ברוכות וברוכים המצטרפים לוובינר של Science Abroad. למי מכן ומכם שמצטרפים אלינו לראשונה, הוובינרים הם חלק מהפעילות הרחבה שמפעיל Science Abroad, בחיבור בין מדעניות ומדענים ישראלים בחו"ל ובישראל בתמיכת המרכז לקליטה במדע והאגף ליזמות עסקית של משרד העלייה והקליטה. אם טרם נרשמתם אלינו באתר, אנא יירשמו והצטרפו גם לפעילות במרכזים שלנו בקמפוסים. הוובינר הזה גם מוקלט ותוכלו לצפות בהקלטה בעוד מספר ימים באתר שלנו, בעמוד היוטיוב שלנו וכמובן בפייסבוק. הערב נמצאת איתנו הגברת הילה שביב, מנכ"ל חברת וייזמות. תודה שהצטרפתם אלינו. אתם מוזמנים לשאול שאלות תוך כדי ההרצאה. אני ברגע ששאלות יעלו אני אקפיץ אותם ואקריא אותם להילה כדי שהיא תוכל לענות, תוך כדי וגם בסוף. הילה, תודה שאת איתנו, מרגישה לנו מהזמן שלך, הבמה שלך.
אוקיי, זהו. אפשר לראות אותי ואפשר לשמוע אותי? נדב?
כן, רואים ושומעים.
אוקיי, אז...
כן, רואים ושומעים אותך.
בסדר. אז אני אשתף את המסך שלי. אפשר לראות את המסך שלי? נדב? נדב, אפשר לראות את המסך, את המצגת? אפשר להתחיל?
כן.
אוקיי, so
אפשר להתחיל, בבקשה. תודה.
Okay, so I'm going to do this in English. I feel proud, privileged, and honored to be able to share my story. It's my life story, and I hope to be able to give you some useful insight, useful information, and if one of the things that I will say will go on escorting you the rest of your life, then I would be very proud and honored. And I chose to start the presentation with a quote from Alan Turing, which said, "We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done." And one of the goals in these presentations is to show you that there is still a lot of work to be done in women's health, well-being, and inequality. And I would like to show some of the gaps existing that I saw during my work, doing the things that I've done in this field. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to present to you my projects, the things that I'm working on, and along the way I will share with you some more insights, stories, and also a little bit about entrepreneurship, if one of your goals is to be an entrepreneur. One thing, if you'll go into my website, this is my bio. You don't have to bother to reading all of this because I'm here, so I can tell you. And I was educated in California Institute of Technology, and my master's degree is from Tel Aviv University. During all my education years and my thesis and my initial years as a young R&D engineer, I dealt with heart flow, blood flow, numerics, in vitro, heart assist device, everything that related to blood and heart. And And when I've decided in 2007 to open my own company, so now I'm what people like to call, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I already had 2 companies. I'm still having, one is still alive. And when I opened the first company called Gal Medics, I had a list of all of my ideas, and as you can imagine, most of the ideas were from the cardiovascular arena, but one idea was from menses and and menstrual flow. So I like to say that I still deal with blood fluid, but in different area of the body. And here is, and as you probably already noticed, Gal Medics and Gal's Bio, it's not accidental that the names are relatively similar. So the reason I chose this name is in the first company, Gal Medics, we worked on a new kind of tampon that treats dysmenorrhea, or in different words, menstrual pain, by the use of a specific kind of waves. So when we wanted to name the new company, we were looking at Waves MD, anything related to waves, but it was all taken already. And then I realized, why not use the Hebrew pronunciation of wave, which is Gal? And this is how we came up with the name Gal Medics. A few years later, I gave a lecture in one of the conferences, and afterwards a woman approached me and she asked me, did you call this company Gal Medics for gals, like a slang for a gal? And I said, no, I didn't think about that, but gee, that's a great idea. So I love things to have more than one meaning. And Gal Medics it is. And so it was obvious to me that when I will open my second company, which is also about a new kind of tampon, the name had to be with the word gals, and this is how, and this is the short story about the name. Another thing that I want to mention here is, notice this is not accidental. I chose to write the this sentence in green, and it's not accidental, and I'll talk on it shortly. So being an adult, you're probably aware that everybody has an agenda. And I like to be very leveled and very clear about my agenda to talk to you tonight. And since you are a group of scientists, so my agenda is to expose scientists to Gal's Bio and to Lipon platform, and to create collaboration, initiatives, and joint research, which is very needed, as I will demonstrate. Very much needed, and also to spark a conversation on women's health, well-being, and promote gender equality. One of the 17 goals stated by the UN a few years ago is gender equality. So next to no poverty, zero hunger, the 5th goal is gender equality. And I believe that after you will, and during this presentation, from my experience, this emphasize this need. And now I want to go back to the green color and to tell you a small story that I had when after opening the second company, Gal's Bio. I had a discussion with an engineer from Albad. Most people do not know this, but most of the tampons sold in the US are manufactured here in Israel, in Caesarea by Albad. And I had a conversation with their chief engineer, R&D, and he was telling me that they were sitting in the R&D sessions, developing tampons for women, and only men are present, 6 or more men, but no women is present in the room. And the results of this R&D session was that we as women, we like green, and therefore the applicators that the new applicators they decided to manufacture were green. And for me, this is to illustrate what the gap still remains when you are doing an R&D relating to the only women you can use tampons, and it's being discussed only by men. So this is one of things that needs to be changed to make sure that women engineers, women entrepreneurs are taken into account in all the fields, and mainly while developing women devices. Okay, I want to ask a short question, and Nadav, you will have to help me with this to tell me if you get any responses. How much blood or menses women bleed during each month, during the menstrual cycle? So I would love to know what are the response that we are getting. Nadav?
אני כן מחכה לראות תכף זה, אם יש תגובות, ואז אני אקריא. יש קצת הרי דיליי בין השידור שלנו לבין השידור בפייסבוק. עוד רגע. יש מישהי כותבת 1 to 2 Oz.
Okay, yes. Another reaction, maybe?
לא להתבייש, מה שנקרא.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about, so I'll continue.
The 4 to 7 Oz. So גם 4 to 7
4 to 7, okay.
The 100 to 200.
100 ml. Okay. So thank you. This is a kind of slide. My boys, I only have boys, by the way. I don't have girls, so I have 2 boys. And when they were younger, I used to go to their school and ask this question and teach young women, teenagers about menses and menses health and all kinds to share with them the knowledge that I gained over the years. And this is one question I used to ask them. And the response I usually got is a Coca-Cola can, 330 ml, which is a lot. This is absolutely much more than what we bleed. So the reality is that we only bleed 30 to 80 ml totally. That this is the total amount per month, the whole week or whole 5 days. Every number more or less is considered abnormal. And another thing I like to say is that if we had bled 330 ml, imagine how much we are eating today before our menstruation, how much we had to eat and accumulate in our body in order to bleed the 330 ml. The point is that this is a basic anatomical data that for me comes to demonstrate how much we don't know, not only by men, but also by women. We think, wow, we are bleeding a lot, but the reality is that we do not. We only bleed a relatively small amount of blood each month. Okay, another question to the group. So is there by any chance an OBG or a doctor that we can ask him or her questions? Is there any response, Nadav?
אני ממתין.
Okay, so I will continue. I'm assuming there isn't. So when you are developing a device for menstruating women, a vaginal device, there are lots of questions that come out. And the reason I asked for an OBG or a doctor is to demonstrate you another issue. And you are more than welcome to do this yourself and ask a friend or ask some your OBGYN. And a few questions that I remember when I started my first company in 2007, I was asking these questions and I had no answer. And unfortunately, I have to say, today we are in 2020, at the end of 2020, and a lot of these questions are still unanswered. And although in recent years, I have to admit that there is more research and more data is accumulated, but still there is so much more to do and so much work to do in this subject. So a question like, what is the source, the physiology of primary dysmenorrhea, the dimensions, simple dimensions of vaginal cavity. What are they? What are the forces? What are the fluid dynamics, the fluid mechanics of the menses? And another question, which for me is kind of shocking, that still no clear data is available, is what are the biomarkers existing in the menses? We know, and I will talk about it later on. Okay. So now I'll tell you the story of my first company, Gal Medics. So as I mentioned, what we did a new kind of tampon that treats dysmenorrhea or menstrual pain, and this was one of the slides, the opening slide in some of my presentation, and I will let you, and I'll give you also along the presentation when I'll have something to say, some emphasis on presentation, entrepreneurship, and I hope that it will help you if you have any innovations yourself. So I used to give this presentation when I started, as all entrepreneurs do. I used to go from angels to angels and from VCs to raise money. And it used to take me 60 minutes to tell my story, to explain what are we doing. And then one day I got accepted to, I passed some competition and I flew to New York, but I had 7 minutes. And how do you turn 60 minutes to 7 minutes? And I have to tell you, this was one of the greatest experiences that I had while presenting, because I had to become razor sharp and focused and totally change the way I presented the project. And that was a great exercise for me. Today, this is common. The entrepreneurship world really changed a lot since 2007 when I started. Today, there are lots of tools, lots of accelerators, and really, I think talking to the point, today you don't get 7 minutes, today you get 3.5 minutes. And honestly, this is enough. It's enough to, if a person would be interested, then it's enough for him. You have to know how to leverage this 3 or 4 minutes. A small issue about confidentiality. As a new entrepreneur, I was very anxious and scared that people will take my idea. And I took a lot of time and effort to sign everyone about NDA or mutual NDA. My recommendation is save yourself time. Don't expose confidential material. The idea you have to expose anyway, so don't expose know-how or drawings. But basically, it's not that common that people take your ideas, and you have to take the risk. This is part of life. And you see, we are almost more than 10 years after I started, and nobody did my idea yet. Okay. And another small issue is you will have, I recommend to develop, to learn some knowledge in Photoshop or in other graphic editing abilities, because you get to do so much of it. And you, as a small company, you don't want to all the time send to a designer and get back to him. So I simply learned to do all of this stuff myself. And another last recommendation, I do recommend this website for a way to build a pitch, and it contains everything that needs to be in the pitch, and basically to very well prepare you to investors' presentation. Okay, so as I told you, I had to be razor sharp with my presentation, and this is how I did it. So you are not only in a device, but you are also inventing way to present it. So I'm sure you are all familiar with the restricted sign for the movies. And since every time I just mentioned menses or vagina, people would go very scared. So this is how I felt like. So this slide was the first slide before I started talking. The next thing was the need. So I also learned how to present the need very efficiently and very fast. Nowadays, I watch other people present, so there are already this thing is already adopted by other people as well. So this is L, and L, as you can see, is a young, healthy woman, and but once a month, L is not happy. And the reason is because she's experiencing very severe menstrual pain. Elle tried everything, including analgesics and hormones. She tried to change her diet, and she did some sport, but nothing really helps. Elle would love to have something which is non-drug related, highly effective, easy to use with no side effects. And Elle heard about our clinical study. This is at the time that we did the clinical study with Acti-Lady. That was the name of our device. And here Elle is happy because we managed to solve her problem. The dysmenorrhea market size is 50% of the menstruating women experiencing menstrual pain on various levels, when 10% experiencing a severe level that they really miss school or miss work on a monthly basis. The assumed accumulated economic annual cost for the US economy is estimated at $3.1 billion per year, and this includes doctor visits and medication, medical leave, and so on. And our business model, when we looked at it, we wanted, the goal was to sell Acti-Lady OTC, over the counter, sorry. And our manufacturing costs were targeted at $1 per unit. And so what exactly is Acti-Lady and how does it work? Here you can see a picture of Acti-Lady on the right, and compared to a regular tampon on the left. And it was supposed to absorb the menses while it was in use. So in order to understand how it works, you actually first need to understand how does dysmenorrhea works. And if you noticed, one of the questions I had is, what is the physiology of dysmenorrhea? So unfortunately, this is something that doesn't exist until today in the literature, in the academia. And I came with a theory as well as with a device. So first came the theory and then the device. How does, why do 50% of the women experience menstrual pain? So once a month after getting a hormonal signal, we have the blood, tissue, and clots accumulated inside our uterus. And everything needs to go out, and it needs to go out via a narrow and long tube, rigid tube, which is called the cervix. The cervix is 1 to 3 millimeters in diameters and 4 centimeters in length. And basically and when you take the menses and you look at it without any special equipment, you can see by your eye that the particles, the tissue particles, are much bigger than this lamen. So what happened is that the uterus has to push it out, and this is basically the cramps. The cramps that women are expressing is when the uterus is pushing out the menses out from the uterus, and it causes ischemia, lack of oxygen into the uterus itself, and it has to continue pushing as long as there is still menses inside. So inside the uterus. So, and the reason is the difference between why do 50% experiences pain and 50% do not. So the theory was that there is a relationship between the menses viscosity and the pain. And so this was our theory. And we also proved it. We proved it in two ways. First way, we did a clinical study, of course, in Hadassah, and we collected menses, and we show and we asked women to document their pain level, and we showed that there is a 99.9% correlation between the menses and that we were collecting and the pain level. And and also another way that we demonstrated that there is a correlation is by the device. Since our device is based on this theory and it was highly efficient in reducing the pain, so this is another way where we can we showed that it was the pain has relationship between to the viscosity of the menses. And how does exactly Acti-Lady work? So it's inserted exactly like a regular tampon. But once inside the body, it's going through an activation. It's actually battery operated. And what it does, it changes the pressure at the outlet of the cervix. And this causes a physical effect called streaming. And streaming is something that very well demonstrated with a ketchup bottle. Not specifically because of the color, but because of the characteristics of the fluid. If you remember in the old days, we used to take the ketchup bottles from glass and we would turn them over and nothing really happened until we exposed it to a vibrating or to vibration or to oscillatory energy. So this is streaming. This is when you expose a non-Newtonian fluid to oscillatory energy, you cause the dynamic viscosity to be reduced, so to enable a fluid to flow where it didn't flow before. So this is what we did in the vaginal cavity. In medicine, this effect is being used for cystic fibrosis, but in the lung, not in the vagina. So we took a technology that was already known, already used in the medicine, and we transferred it into the vaginal cavity. Here you have a cutout of tulipon. As I said, you have a battery and garmushka, and that created the pressure. And here you can see another picture of Acti-Lady from the latest models. Here are some results of our clinical study. We had a few clinical studies in Hadassah and Karem. It was blinded. And each subject, there were not many subjects, but each subject participated for 6 months. So we collected data from 132 menstruation, and this included placebo and baseline and our device. And here you can see a comparison between Acti-Lady. So it managed to reduce the pain in 55%. Compared to placebo effect and compared to what we know from analgesics effect from the literature. And here, this slide is supposed to show you that we were in a blue ocean, meaning none other devices or treatment treated menstrual pain in the same manner and in the same efficacy and efficiency as we managed to do. And in spite of all of that, and in spite of having a really good and dedicated team that, as I mentioned, I worked on this for almost 10 years, Galmedics was not successful in raising fund and to get all the way to the market. And in 2016, the company was closed. And the only the memory now exists in the literature. And this is an article that we published that summarizes the work that we did concerning dysmenorrhea and concerning finding the relationship between menstrual pain and viscosity, and explaining the effect of our device. This was happening in 2016. Of course, it started even earlier. And so you would expect me as a person to give up and to move on with my life. But I guess I didn't have enough, and I had a very good idea. In 2016, I opened my second company, as I mentioned. It's called Gals Bio. And we were targeting only 50% or 10% of menstruating women. In Gals Bio, we are targeting menstruating women. As part of our clinical study with the GalMedics, what I had to do is I had to collect the menses in order to research the dynamic viscosity. So in order to collect the menses, I used a menstrual cup. Nowadays, almost everybody know what menstrual cup is. 10 years ago, nobody. I had every discussion, I had to start with explaining what is a menstrual cup. So nowadays, my life became really easy. It's the ecological remedy for that millennial women prefer to use, and in increasing numbers every year. And nowadays you can also find it in pharmacies, and in Israel it's only in nature shops, but in the US, Target, Walgreens, Walmart, they all have this on the shelf, which is quite revolutionary. So I used menstrual cup in our study, so I could research as I mentioned, the viscosity of the menses. But then I came up with an idea. I think a menstrual cup is a great idea, but it has its problems, and because it's reusable and you have to wash it, and the toilet looks like a murder scene after you empty it. And so it was obvious to me why, in spite of the fact that it was developed in 1923, it was invented in 1923, by the way, by a woman, why it's not more popular. Tampons were invented in 1921 by a guy, by a man. And pad, of course, were invented in the previous century. And by the way, pad is one of the most invention that had a lot of effect of women equality, because it finally enabled women to go out from their home and to work outside even during the days of their bleeding, where before women were limited to stay only in their homes. And so this is one of the things that started the revolution concerning women. And for me, this slide also present another issue. You have 50% of the population that experiences menses, bleeding for 40 years of their life, and you have only 3 devices in the market. Okay, there is also, I'm sure somebody will say, there is things, and there are panties nowadays, but it's all based on the same principle, either pads, which is like a diaper, tampons that are really problematic, and I will show that shortly, and the menstrual cup that I already talked a little bit. So what we did in Tulipon, we took the best attributes of a tampon and the best attributes of a menstrual cup, and we combined them together to one device, and you will see shortly. So this is, just to make clear, this is not, this pitch is directed in presenting the needs and understanding. This is not an investor pitch, so if anyone is interested in investing, then you will have to contact me to get a different slide deck. You already know that I like presenting things visually, so I don't know if you ever had experienced such a vision. I know that I've seen a few times in my lifetime women that are not aware that their pants are stained. I remember until today at school, I had a friend that that happened to her, and it was in the middle of the summer, and she just she didn't have any replacement. She didn't have anything to put on, and she just waited and waited until the school was almost closed, so she can go back home and without having too many people laughed at her. So it's reported that 70% of women that uses tampons, they use pads in parallel because they are afraid. They do not trust this device. That tampon is not a device that you can put and forget. And of course, this has a big effect on our life. If you have to worry about the device that you are using, if it's working properly. Another things that I want to mention here, because we are getting short on time, is that 40% of women who do not use tampons claim it's due to TSS. And this is another problem concerning tampons. I don't know if you know this or not, but every tampon pack has a sign on it saying this device can kill you. And in the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, that was the first time when TSS was a relationship between toxic shock syndrome and tampons was discovered. It's not that women didn't die or were sick from TSS, toxic shock, prior to that. They did, but they didn't know that it was that there is a connection to the tampon. And the reason is that they found the connection is that because P&G came out to the market with a new kind of tampon called Relay, and suddenly a lot of women died, and a lot of women became sick. And they all had one thing in common, and that was the P&G tampon, that was the Relay. And since this event, that was, by the way, one of the biggest recall event in ever. In the history of consumer products, and since then, tampon became regulated under 510K track by the FDA. And the numbers have been reduced thanks to this regulation, but still, even today, women are still dying from TSS It's very hard to know the statistic because it's not a disease that needs to be reported to the CDC. And the numbers that I'm presenting you here today, they are very hard to find. And a lot of investors like to say, well, this is in the boundary, it's very, it's not a lot of women. And what I ask them is to tell Amy that actually lost her life in 2010. And Lorraine Wasser, which is a famous model that lost 2 legs in 2012, only because they were using tampons. And this is a commodity device, and personally I think this is unacceptable, that women will have to use a device, and they are not always aware that the dangers that it exposed them. Another issue that unfortunately not a lot of research is being done is, as I mentioned earlier, biomarkers within the menses. Almost all of the human fluid are being researched, from saliva to urine, tears, everything is being researched except from one liquid, and a liquid that none of us would have been here and talking today if it weren't thanks to this liquid, the menses. And in 2012 there was one article published that there are 385 unique proteins that indicates unique biomarkers in health. And still, since 2012, still you can count on one hand the number of articles that published relating this issue. Okay, so this will take a minute. This is what we have developed. This is Tulipon. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, it combines the best attribute of a tampon with the best attribute of a menstrual cup. So it is inserted exactly like a regular tampon with an applicator, but when it opens up as a menstrual cup. Here we've done the animation in transparent, so you can see the inner mechanism, but basically it won't be transparent. And we also added other attributes, like, as you can see, one-way valve. So everything that is collected actually stays inside, and as you can see now, and it's going to be biodegradable. So it's going to give answer to all the people that women, basically, that ecology is important to them. Just before I finish, I would like to take this opportunity and to thank my team. We have a great team working on with me with this, and I'm really proud and happy and to have each one of them supporting my idea and supporting me in this journey. And finally, I want to stress some of the points and maybe summarize, and if you will have some questions, I will be more than happy to answer. So I hope I managed to demonstrate to you that there is still a lot of research and to discover in the basic science around menses, women health and well-being. OTC, over-the-counter, B2C medical device entrepreneurship is very, very hard. If I could write more here, I would. If you can avoid a business model of B2C, I most recommend this. It's very hard to raise funding, and especially in healthcare. And in women health, I will get that shortly. It's really get to be even more complicated. And another suggestion is not to invent the wheel, use it for your innovation. And I'm referring to when you have an innovation like we had in my first company, that we also had to demonstrate, to prove, to research the basic science. This is something that I do not recommend to do. You want to work on things that are already explored and already investigated in the science, and things are already proven. So you only have to develop the new technology, but not the basic science. And since we are all intelligent people, as I mentioned, I had a list of all various kind of ideas. So when you are choosing the one idea to work on, choose well. As for something that really is a painful point for me, you would expect women to be investing in women initiatives. Unfortunately, from my experience so far, all the investments I had in my companies, in both companies so far, came only from men, and no women investors. From my experience, women's investors, first of all, there are much less of them, and if they invest in a later stage. But I have to admit that this reality is now changing, and women have to understand that in order to do changes, to empower women and to make new technology, and technology that is related to women, there will need to be the other side, the investor side, because as much as I appreciate the men that are supporting me, they are doing this from a business point of view, from understanding the business side, and it's not a personal pain point for them. It's a personal pain point if they are surrounded, most probably they are surrounded with women and children and daughters. As for women health field, this is a very problematic field, as I mentioned more than once, still, because there is still a lot of data is missing. So definitely I encourage research and as much more research to be done in this. It's okay to pivot. I didn't get to this at all, so I won't get to this now. Maybe if you want to ask me a question. Investments rely on relationship that are built over time. So if you want to have your own innovation, and you don't know whether it's too early to address a VC, usually they work, somebody told me this, we are connecting the points. So they want to see you grow over time, get smarter, get advanced with your abilities. So it's okay to come to them too early, but then keep them posted, keep them up to date. I really believe that nowadays accelerators are a really great way to start your innovation. I learned everything by myself. There is no need to do that anymore. There is enough help out there. You have to choose it well, but it is possible. And as I mentioned, you're more than welcome to contact me and to ask me questions. And one sentence that I like to share with you is the greatest risk in life is not taking any. And this is something that escorted me throughout my risk taking years. And one last thing is, I love this slide. This is how I like to finish my presentation with the tulipon. And that's it. And thank you. So I'm open to questions.
אוקיי, הילה, יופי, קודם כל מאוד מרתק. שואלת כאן, does this product exist on the market? It looks amazing.
Me? Who asked this?
נילי שאלה.
Nili. Okay, so we are still developing. Tulipon is now being tested clinically here in Israel. And thank you. I also agree with that. I think it's an amazing device. It's working device, and we hope to get to the market soon with it. We are actually, I mentioned this, we are fundraising. So Nili, if you know somebody that has $1 million to spare, we are fundraising.
אוקיי, יש כאן עוד שאלה, במקביל הבת שלי עושה פה לאכול, אם שומעים את הרעש. הנה שואלת, what ended up with the first innovation? Is the IP being picked up by someone developed further?
No. So, excuse me, something got into my eye. This device does not exist. The technology exists and the knowledge exists only in one place in the world now, here in my brain. And I do believe that one day I'm going to go back to it and develop it, because basically I didn't have time to talk about everything, really. I have many more stories to tell and things to talk about, but Tulipon is basically a platform. It's a vaginal platform, and we will be able to use it also as to later on to do also treatment. So one of our goals, maybe one of my dreams, is to use Tulipon also to treat dysmenorrhea using the technology we developed in GalMedics.
אוקיי, מיכל אומרת כאן, thanks הילה, very inspiring, אז באמת אני חושב, הילה, רגע, יש פה עוד שאלה. What is your explanation of the failure of your first company, and what did you learn from it?
Wow. Do we have another hour?
בוא נגיד זאת תהיה השאלה המסכמת של הוובינר שלנו.
Well, I truly believe that we were way ahead of our time. Way. Like, I like to give the example of GalMedics. This is an example for me that if you want to do something and you believe in it, then you can do this. Everything is possible, because retrospectively, thinking about GalMedics, the fact that I managed to raise money, the fact that I managed to get so far ahead with this was purely the power wheel, willpower that promoted this startup. I can tell you there were a long period of time that I didn't even give myself salary, because I wanted everything to go to the project. This is something that I do not recommend, actually. I do not recommend for an entrepreneur not to give himself salary. If a company, if you cannot raise money, there is a certain point that you need to give up. And eventually I did. So as I mentioned, we were way ahead of our time. The results were really amazing. the women that participated in the clinical study, they didn't want to give us back the tampons because it's such a big pain point for them. And what did I learn from it? Well, I learned from it that women health entrepreneurship is really hard. It's really hard to raise money. And in spite of learning all of it, by the way, I used to call myself Don Quixote. I'm fighting against windmills. This is how I felt. But still, I still went for the second entrepreneurship with Girls Bio, and we are still in the journey. So our story is still being written. So I don't know how it's going to end, and hopefully we're gonna succeed and we're gonna get to the market, because I really I think it's about time. But one thing I know, this is my last innovation. I'm not going to innovate another medical device, that's for sure.
אוקיי, הילה, תודה, ממש תודה רבה לך על הדברים מעוררי השראה, והניסיון אין ספק שהוא ככה יהווה מודל, ותוך כדי שהעברת הרצאה, הבנות שיעברו ויסתכלו אבא מה זה וביקשו לקבל תשובות. אז באמת תודה רבה והיה מרתק. לכל הצופות והצופים שלנו, אני רוצה להגיד שהוובינר הזה, כמו שאמרתי, הוקלט, משודר אונליין כל הזמן אצלנו, בעמוד הפייסבוק שלנו, וניתן לצפות כמובן בהקלטה גם בארכיון הוובינרים שלנו באתר. הוספנו כאן לינק למטה למשוב, שנשמח לקבל מכם משוב כדי ללמוד מבחינתנו על השידורים, קדימה, ועל הוובינרים שאנחנו מנהלים. וזהו, אז אני רוצה להגיד תודה רבה שוב, הילה, המון המון בהצלחה, תמשיכי לשנות את העולם.
תודה על הזמן ועל ההקשבה, זה באמת לא מובן מאליו. וכבוד הוא לי, ואני מקווה באמת שאם יהיה משהו שמישהו ייקח איתו מפה, אז בכלל היה שווה את הזמן.
זה בטוח, זה כבוד שלנו. תודה ושבת שלום לך ולכולם. תודה.
שבת שלום, תודה רבה, כל טוב.